Bridge collapse under construction in Hamirpur, India. People were sleeping inside the bridge, inside the so-called box girders, when it came down. I have to mention again, collapses almost never happen from a single cause. It's always a combination. This is the situation right after the collapse, with many disaster tourists at the scene. We can see directly that a column is missing. In the next shot we see the same. Bridge parts on the ground and a missing column, but we can also see partially intact temporary support structure still standing. One more look at the scene, where we see the temporary steel bridge supports clearly visible. Google Earth shows us the location just outside of Hamirpur, where we can also see the foundation being constructed at that moment. A few days after the collapse, this reporter gives us a close-up of the location. We see columns still standing with constructed bridge elements on top. Important to notice are the construction joints in the column. Look here. Approximately every 4 meters or 12 feet. These create weak spots if not properly executed. We'll come back to that later. Now, let's go to the collapse location itself. We see the bridge deck elements, including reinforcement that, once put under tension and finished with epoxy, would allow the elements to carry themselves. However, we can see that the reinforcement had not been tensioned yet, meaning the deck could not carry itself at this stage. We also see steel supports to hold the bridge deck up until it can carry itself, along with temporary foundations for those supports. Here we see the column fallen over in the longitudinal direction of the bridge. This tells us that the storm going on during the collapse was only part of the problem. The wind was acting in the transverse direction when it fell. Something interesting, the steel bars failed in tension. The fracture pattern looks like clay being stretched. It gets narrower in the middle and then breaks at its weakest point, right in the middle. The reporter here reveals the size and amount of reinforcement used. In my view, it would be sufficient just to resist wind loads alone. In this shot we can clearly see the bridge was still under construction. The individual bridge elements were not yet clamped together, because I can see the tension rods are missing, here at the end. Also interesting, the top of the column is sitting on top of the foundation after the collapse. Now we'll look at the top of the column and the pier cap, which were connected before the collapse. Since the contact surface is not rough, this tells us the connection between the column top and the pier cap was very poor. If we go back to the fracture surface near the base, we can see how it's supposed to look. Flat means barely bonded. Here we see the pile cap again, as we saw before from the other side, broken off from the top of the column. And we can also see the broken steel supports and their temporary foundations. Let's quickly go back to one of the first shots, where we saw some supports still standing. Here's the key fact. If all those supports had remained standing, the bridge deck under construction would still be hanging there. Most probably, the storm damaged this temporary structure, and with the heavy vertical loads from the bridge deck above, that was fatal. So, the storm damages the steel support structure, so it cannot longer carry vertical loads. We already saw the poor connection between the column top and the pier cap, so that connection breaks. And when the bridge deck presses down like this, we can see exactly how the column broke. 125 tons presses into the column and breaks it. This also explains why the column top ended up sitting on top of the column base after the collapse. I quickly checked whether the columns could handle these forces. The software said impossible, 4 times beyond their maximum capacity. Thanks for watching and feel free to comment any doubt you have. And subscribe. See you in the next video.